welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my labor and delivery story. I did give birth at 20 years old and I did have no epidural. So if you would like to hear the story of me going into labor and everything that happened in the delivery and how it all went, then just keep watching. So I gave birth on Saturday, September 15th. On Thursday, a couple days before that, I went to bed at 3 a.m. That Friday morning, like 3.5 hours later after I had just went to bed, I woke up around 6:30 and I was having really bad cramps. And I had never known what a contraction felt like. I hadn't known if I had felt one up to this point. I had no idea. I didn't even know if I was ever having Braxton Hicks. I knew nothing. So I just got up, I tried to take a shower, tried to make the pain go away, and it didn't. So I was like, maybe these are contractions, because my due date was September 15th. So, you know, it was September 14th. I knew it could be possible. So I started timing them. And I started timing them at 7 a.m. and at 8 a.m. I was still having contractions, and they had been 5, 6, 7 minutes apart, like 45 seconds each. And I was like, okay, so this is the start of labor, I think. I waited a little bit longer. Around 9:30, I finally went in to Alec and I was like, hey, I think I'm in labor. Now, he didn't really know anything about labor, anything really about anything regarding the labor or delivery. So, of course, he starts freaking out and he's like, oh my God, like, let's go to the hospital. Like, this is happening, you know? And I was like, no. Labor takes a long time. I don't want to go in and get turned away. Like, it just started a couple hours ago. Sorry if you hear my son crying in the background. Alec is with him, but yeah. Anyway, so Alec sat up with me for a little bit and he would see me being in pain and how frequent it was. So at around 10 a.m. he convinced me to let's just go to get checked out. We had nothing packed yet, no hospital bags, nothing. We didn't even have the car seat installed yet. So we run around for the next 45 minutes trying to pack stuff for the hospital. And we get there around 11 a.m. And I get checked in, I get settled, and I'm only 1 centimeter dilated, which 4 weeks before that I was also only 1 centimeter dilated, so nothing had even changed, which was super upsetting considering how much pain I had been in for like the last 3.5 hours. So yeah, the doctor had us sitting in the room for an hour. She had said something about letting us walk around, left, and didn't come back. An hour passed and I called the nurse button and I was just like, hey, we want to go home. Alec still had to go to work. It was noon at this point. Alec worked at 3. We had wasted so much time there. We were just ready to go. So she came back and she was like, oh, I was just giving you a chance to like let things progress. And I was like, I mean, you can check me again, but we want to leave. So she checked me again, nothing had changed, we left. Alec went to work at 3. Things had kind of started to slow down a little bit. Like, I didn't feel them as much, I wasn't noticing them as much. I still was not able to sleep. I tried. I just spent my time bouncing on a ball, and I probably took a total of like 4 showers this day. So, yeah. At around 6, Alec came home for a break and stayed home with me for like an hour and a half because I was just, the pain had gotten so much worse. Things had picked back up. I was so upset being alone. I felt miserable. I felt like I was losing it. He ended up leaving, going back to work at around 9:30. I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't be alone. I was having a mental breakdown. I was losing my mind. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, it hurts so bad. I will say it did not hurt as bad as I expected. Everyone, I feel like, makes it seem like it is the worst pain. It was bad, but it was not anything worse really than like a really bad period cramp. So Alec did come home from work early at around 10. Of course, he was still trying to convince me to go back to the hospital. He was like, let's just go back. And I was like, I don't want to go back. If we get sent away a second time, I'm gonna lose my mind. If I get told that there's nothing has changed, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Around 11:30, he's like, let's just go. It's night. If we get turned away, we can come back and we still have the whole night. It won't really interfere with anything. Let's just go. So I was like, you know what? Fine, let's just go. Let's get this over with. I wasn't sure if I would get sent away again. I really had no idea. So we go and we get there around midnight. And they check me, and this time I'm between 3 and 4 centimeters. They had known that I was here earlier, so they knew that I had been contracting all day. So they were like, we're gonna admit you. And so yeah, I got admitted. So they first started asking me a bunch of questions. They asked if I had a birth plan, which I did not. They asked basically just a bunch of labor questions. This is when I told them that I wanted to deliver naturally. That was my goal. And then also that they asked if I wanted a mirror to watch, and I said yes. Later on, I did change my mind. As I was getting ready to push, I'd already pushed a few times, and she was like, oh, it says you want a mirror. And I was like, no, not anymore. I continued laboring, but I was watching on the screen, and I was feeling what I felt like were contractions, and again, they were not as bad as I thought they were going to be. So I really was confused. And the little monitor was not really going up and down. It had been at some points, but then it was kind of going away, and I was like, oh no, I'm about to be here forever. So at 3 a.m., I had been there for over 3 hours now, and I was still at 4 centimeters. So she told me if I am not any further by 6 a.m., they are going to give me something to jumpstart contractions. She was like, we want to hold off on that if we can, only because you did say you wanted to go naturally, but if nothing is changing, then we need to intervene a little bit. So at that point, I was like, oh no. So I got up, and me and Alec walked the halls, but the pain was so much worse when I was walking. That did not really last that long, but the pain being worse was a good sign to me. So I walked around for just a little bit. I kind of stood in the room because Alec was exhausted. He had almost been up as much as I had. He had went to work, so he was also tired, so he just wanted to chill. So we sat on the bed and we watched The Office. They gave us like a tablet that I could order food on, watch stuff, get on social media on. So we were watching The Office, most of my labor actually. And they came back in to check me around 6, and I was at 5 centimeters. So I didn't need anything. They weren't gonna give me anything to jumpstart things. So I was relieved. So she came in around 8 a.m. and I was around 6 centimeters. At this point, the pain was getting too much. Alec was sleeping, so I was going through it alone, and honestly, I felt like I would have rather been dead. Not because the pain was even that bad, but because it was lasting so long and I was so tired. Because I had only had 3.5 hours of sleep since Thursday night, and this is now Saturday morning. And I had also been throwing up. I threw up probably 4 or 5 times throughout labor. So I was over it. I called the nurse in and I was like, I want some pain medicine through my IV. And she was like, okay, I'll see if we can do something, but we don't want to give you anything if there's a chance that you'll have him in the next 2 hours, only because it'll make the baby sleepy and we don't want him to come out sleepy. So she came back and was like, the doctor is in surgery right now, so I can't ask him. You're gonna have to wait until he's done. So I started freaking out because I was like, oh no, it's gonna be a minute, and then by the time he's done, I'm not gonna be able to get it. But about an hour later, she comes in and she gives me the medicine, and it made a world of a difference. I hadn't even been able to relax, but after I had that, I almost was able to fall asleep. But the doctor came in and was like, I'm gonna break your water. We want to just pick things up a little bit. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And I kind of looked at him for a second and I was like, can you wait? And he was a little confused and he said, well, that wouldn't really do anything. Waiting isn't gonna make anything happen. We might as well just get this over with. Which I had heard that contractions felt so much worse after your water broke. And so I was so upset because I had just started to feel comfortable and now it was about to be so much worse. But he went ahead and broke my water, and honestly, I don't feel like they got that much worse. I think I got in my head about it and I just expected them to be worse, so they felt a little worse, but it was not really any huge difference. At around 11:30, I was just barely like right there at 10 centimeters. The nurse said I had a little bit of like a lip that was like making it not be quite 10 centimeters, but she was like, I think if we start pushing, that'll just go away. So she was like, we're gonna start pushing. This is like right before 11:30 in the morning on Saturday. So yeah, I start pushing, and then she's like, oh, I need to go get I think it was the oxytocin. So she's like, if you feel the need to push, you just push. And she leaves the room. So it is just me and Alec. He is holding up my legs and I am pushing. And she comes back a little less than 5 minutes later, and yeah, I keep pushing. I pretty much expected that part to be hard for me. I felt like I did not have, even like not in labor, I felt like I did not have the ability to push for as long as I needed to push, like for that 10 seconds each time. That was hard for me. It was also really hard to keep my legs up to my chest. I've seen videos of labor, like of women in labor, and mine, I had to keep my legs like hugged up to my chest, but I've seen other videos where their legs are just like kind of out, so I don't know what the difference is. I don't know if different hospitals do it differently, but yeah. So the doctor came in just to check on how things were going, which I also did not know that doctors were not in the room the whole time, but he came in, and at this point I had probably been pushing like over a half hour to an hour, and he looked and he was like, oh, you have a while to go. But you're doing good. And I thought I was about to cry. Like, I think I started tearing up because I felt like I could not do it anymore. It was exhausting. There was a woman in the next room who was also pushing, at the same time as me, so it was kind of like a race. They were joking that we were like in a race. The nurse began to talk about how he was almost out. So I was like getting pretty excited, but she was like, oh, let me call the doctor. So she calls the doctor real quick and is like, hey, she's almost done. And he was like, well, try and make her hold off a little bit because I'm in the next room delivering her baby. So she was like, try not to push, just apply a little bit of pressure. I was doing this naturally. I don't know anyone who's had labor with an epidural. I don't obviously know what that's like, but I've heard you can't feel the need to push. But doing it naturally, you feel the need to push. It is intense. So once you kind of start putting pressure, you just want to push, push, push. So she would be kind of not yelling, but she would be like, just put pressure. And I was yelling at her, and I was like, I can't. I cannot. I need to push. So yeah, so then she called another nurse in here and was like, you need to get the doctor. She cannot wait. And she went into the other room and came back and was like, he said he'll be 5 minutes. And the nurse was like, we do not have 5 minutes. So she went back over there again and came back, and she was like, he said 2 minutes. But if you need to just do it, then just do it. So he comes in just in time. Literally, he came out 30 seconds later. So he came in enough time to catch him and put him on me, and then he, delivered my placenta, and I did tear. I had a 2nd-degree tear. I teared up the back, up the front, and on both of the sides. So it was a pretty intense 2nd-degree tear. So yeah, at 12:57 p.m. on September 15th, Isaac Graham was born at 6 pounds 15 ounces, and he was 19 inches long. But yeah, it was not as bad as I thought. Would I do no epidural again? I don't know. Because I wish that I had been able to get sleep, because now my son is 7 weeks, and probably last night was the most I've ever slept. He slept for about 4.5 hours straight, and I went to bed with him, which was the first time since he's been born that that's happened. So I wish I would have been able to get more sleep right before he came, because as you moms also probably know, you don't get any sleep, which I had expected. So yeah, thank you for watching the story about my labor and delivery. I did also want to mention that I had not watched any videos, had not taken any birthing classes. My doctor had asked me before labor if I plan on going natural at my 38-week checkup, and I told her, yeah, I did plan on going natural. And she was like, have you taken any classes? And I said no, and she was like, you might want to watch some YouTube videos at the very least. And I did not take that advice. Do I think it might have helped? I'm not quite sure, but honestly, it really was not as bad as I feel like people make it out to seem. However, having the thought that it is that bad may have made it not as painful for me, because I expected the worst. But yeah, if you just have confidence that you know your body can do it, this is what women are made to do, I think it makes it so much easier. Again, this is my first kid, so it's not like I know a harder way, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching, and see you in my next video. Bye!